Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. So today we're going to be taking a look at the Spedix racing quadcopter. Basically, this is a review model from banggood.com. I will have the links in the description of where you can purchase one of these. And what we're going to be doing, this is basically a kit. This is a carbon fiber and plastic quadcopter that basically comes in this kit. It's a almost ready to fly kit. It basically has everything you need to build it without soldering anything. It's all plug and play. And basically it's going to look something like this when we're all done. It's got carbon fiber plates on the top and bottom, a carbon fiber camera mount here for a recording camera, and then it has a mounting area here for the FPV camera, which I actually don't have yet. I'm going to be getting an FPV camera pretty soon in for this guy. And then it's got these plastic arms here, comes with the motors, the ESCs, everything in this package. All the electronics are in this package. What it doesn't come with is the FPV, and this also does not come with a transmitter. And so what we're going to be doing here is basically just taking all this stuff out of the box, building it, showing you how to build this, and then once it's built, we're going to take it out to the park, do some testing, and once the FPV comes in, we'll also install the camera, and hopefully I'll get that before the build's done. And then we'll be able to test all the aspects of how this thing flies, some durability testing, how it does with FPV, and just basically an overall. We'll get some video in the flight, we'll get some onboard video, we'll get some hat cam video. We will then come back to the bench and do kind of a final pros and cons, afterthoughts, and see how everything did. But initially out of the package, basically you get this. The instruction manual is really basic. It doesn't show anything about how to install the electronics on this. It's just basically the hardware and the motors and the ESCs, how to put all that stuff in. So it's a very simple manual, but it's pretty self-explanatory. They give you a bunch of bags. Looks like we have the kind of like the landing gear feet that go on the ends of the arms here. Bag 4 is basically our dampered camera mount with a carbon fiber camera mount for our recording camera, and bag 1 is basically our arms. So basically the Spedix either comes in this kit, the ARF kit, either comes in a CC 3D flight controller or the KK 2.15 flight controller. Unfortunately, the only one Banggood had in stock was the one with the KK flight controller. And so I may be eventually switching this out for the CC 3D, but I'm just going to try it with this, see how it does. Looks like this one is, this package also, it looks like it has a beeper here, so that's good to know. Then we've got our 4 props. I believe these are 5.5-inch propellers. We've got another bag of standoffs, bolts and screws. And then we have 4 motors. Let's see what these are. These are, ooh, nice. These are Sunny Sky X2204S-16 2300 kV motors. So that's cool. Sunny Sky is a good quality brand, Japanese brand, so good to know they're giving some good quality motors in there. And then we have interesting electronic speed controls. And these are actually round electronic speed controls. Now the interesting thing about this craft is you'll notice all the connectors are plug-in. So there's no soldering required. So somebody without really any soldering skill could put this together pretty darn easily. It's got all these push-in kind of this modular design that could be changed really simple. If anything happens, you can change one component without soldering. And then here is the power distribution board. And then we got our top and bottom plate, basically the chassis, and this is labeled as bag 3. And then basically you have your 2.4 gigahertz receiver, real small little tiny receiver, really lightweight, looks pretty good. And then you've got a battery strap here. So basically you are also going to need to provide your own battery as well. But it looks like a pretty interesting quad, and I'm going to have a lot of fun putting this together. I'm going to go through it with you guys and show you how to put it together. So let's get started. Okay, so I got everything laid out on the table, out of the box. I cut open all the bags, and I'm gonna start off with this section here first with the arms. And basically, all we're gonna be doing is putting the motor on the arm, ESC in the arm, the cover on, and then the foot on the arm as well. We're gonna do that for all 4 arms, and then we're gonna start putting the central body together and putting the arms in the body. So a couple things to note. The baggies with the ESCs are labeled as red and green. So I'm assuming that must be the LED lights. It looks like they probably have some LED lights on the bottom, and one is green, one is red. So you could put red in the front, red in the back, whatever you want. So I'm probably going to put red in the back and green in the front. So basically at this point, it doesn't really matter. All the arms are exactly the same, and they're going to go in exactly the same orientation on all 4 corners of the quad. So it doesn't really matter which is which, I believe, at this point. Okay, so let's go ahead and start the assembly. So basically just the wires would push in, and the motor goes right on the top. And then the motors each come with these little bag of Allen screws as well, 4 Allen screws. And then the Allen wrench that fits these perfectly is a 2mm Allen wrench, hex head. What I would highly recommend doing before you start putting screws in, metal to metal, is going ahead and getting some of this blue Loctite and just putting a dab, just a small little dab on each screw you're going to be putting in. Just so if there is vibration in flight, your screws don't end up backing out and failing on you. So probably the easiest way is just to put the screw on the end of your Allen and then push it through the hole and kind of get the motor seated on there, and then just kind of start the screw going, and then line up the other ones. So we're going to do that for all 4 screws. Then basically I'm tightening them down, not too tight so it cracks any plastic, but you know, nice and snug so they're not going to be backing out. Pretty much the thread locker will keep them from unscrewing, so you don't need to go too tight, just nice and snug. So basically the way the ESCs go in is basically just setting them right down inside of the arm like so. So trying to make sure not to pinch the wires too much. And it should just kind of pop right down in there. And then you can kind of see the you can see where the plastic standoffs just kind of protrude through the holes, and that will screw into the bottom feet. And then as far as the feet go, looks like you just kind of put it on with the pointy part sticking in towards the quad, and it should fit on there nice and perfectly. And then the feet actually come with these screws that are going to hold the feet and the ESCs in place. And then these ones, since they are screwing into plastic, there's really no need to put thread locker on these, and just screw these right into the plastic. Okay, so there's the first part of one arm. And I'm not going to put on these plates. These plates basically are going to be going just over, just like this. They've got 3 screws per plate. And once we get all the wires plugged in, they're just going to be basically covering it up like that, and then screwing in themselves. But these are going to be plugging in. I want to make sure I get these plugged in correctly, so I'm going to come back once these are all installed and put the plates on last, just so I can change any wires around if we need to change motor rotation or anything like that. We're going to go ahead and do the same thing for all 4 of these arms. There's no real distinction except for the bag on what color the ESCs are. So for the green ones, it might be a good idea to maybe put a green dot or just something to differentiate. So what I'm actually going to do is the 2 The two arms that I'm going to be putting the green ESCs on are going to be, I'm going to just go ahead and color one of these metal things green, maybe both of them green, just so I know. Okay, so we got the arms together, and now we're going to be putting on the frame, putting the arms in the frame. So basically what we want to do is, since I did make sure that I put the ESCs that are green and the motors on two of these arms, we got one motor that's clockwise and one motor that's counterclockwise. I went ahead and marked these on green. Basically all we want to make sure we do is put these on the same end of the quadcopter. This is basically symmetrical all the way around, so it doesn't matter which end you start with. So I'm just going to start with one end here and then work my way around it. So main thing I'm worried about is just making sure that these ones I marked with the green are in the front, whichever I decide to make the front, and then the ones that aren't marked, which have the red LEDs and the ESCs, are going to be in the back. This is the bottom plate, and it looks like the way we connect this is just basically resting an arm right on the bottom plate, and then it's just got these 4 screw holes that will line up just like this. And we're going to be screwing these into these metal nuts here, and so we're going to be wanting to put a little bit of blue Loctite on them just so they don't vibrate loose. These 3 wires, these 3 long wires, I want to make sure that these are going to come through this middle kind of notch here while I'm putting on the chassis, putting the arms onto the chassis. So again, it doesn't really matter which arm goes where right now as long as the 2 greens are on the same end. Okay, so while we're doing this, making sure that the wires aren't being pinched and that the screws are not going through any wires. So basically same thing for all 4 corners. I'm making sure that I put these 2 green ones I marked with the green ESC LEDs on the same end, and then the other 2 are going to go on the other end. So we're going to do that for all 4 corners. So when you are installing the motors, you're going to want to make sure that when you have your front determined, you're going to want to make sure that the right front is your clockwise. So we're going to have clockwise, clockwise, counterclockwise, and counterclockwise. Okay, so all the arms are on. We have them staggered diagonally with the same clockwise and counterclockwise in the same diagonal pattern. And we got all the wires. The long wires are run through the notches here. We're making sure that those are clear and not binding, not screwed together. No screws are going through the wires, and they're not pinched at all. Okay, so while we have the top off, I haven't put the top chassis on yet. I'm going to go ahead and put the power distribution board in there, and probably the flight controller too. Unfortunately, I tried to go to Spedix website. I couldn't find any instructions. So what I'm doing now is I'm just going to the Banggood website, and I'm looking at the pictures that they have of the assembled unit. It's going to be kind of copying what they did here, how they assembled it. So that's kind of unfortunate. I don't know where to get better instructions on this, but I guess it's not entirely difficult if you've got some pictures to go by. So I'm just going to be going by these pictures. So first of all, I've got it kind of oriented where I've got the front facing this way, how they do, and the rear on this side. You can see they have the receiver in the back there. And then I'm just going to kind of follow exactly how they have this thing mounted up. So it looks like they have it oriented this way. And this is the bag here that came with the power distribution board. So basically we've got 2 different size standoffs, plastic standoffs, for mounting the power distribution board. And I think what this is all about is since the KK flight controller is a little thicker than the CCD 3D, you've got two different options. So since it looks like the flight controller mounts directly on top of the power distribution board like this, I'm going to go ahead and use these smaller ones just to give it a little more room. So those are nice and tight, and we're going to be mounting it just like it shows in the picture here. Looks like we got to go back one notch. There we go. Okay. So we're going to put all four of these anodized nuts on. And it looks like this is where a little wrench would actually help. So I'm going to get a wrench real quick. 5.5 millimeter hex driver. And really, you don't really need to be torquing these down very tight. Okay, so now that we got the power distribution board mounted per the picture on Banggood's website, we're going to go ahead and just plug in the ESCs now. So we're just going to slide these bullet plugs right into, this is going to be ESC 1 negative and positive. Slide them in nice and tight. And then just basically go around the whole craft. Now this is a power distribution board that can actually handle 6 ESCs, but we only have 4 on this craft, so we're just going to go to kind of like the ones closest to the ESCs. So we're going to skip that middle one and we're going to go to 3 on this one. And same thing for the other side. Okay. Okay, so at this point, if you didn't get any double-sided sticky tape with your kit, now's the time to put on some double-sided sticky tape to the flight controller. So basically what I'm going to do is just put on a couple of strips here, since I didn't get any in my kit. So flight controller mounted as square as possible. Okay, so we got the flight controller mounted to the power distribution board. And now we're going to plug everything in. So coming out of the power distribution board, you're going to have this 5-volt wire. Looks just like this. And bring it over to the left-hand side if this is the front of the craft. And I'm going to go ahead and plug it into the second one down from the top. Now at this point, I didn't have any instruction on what to do on this, and so I did a search on YouTube to see another guy that did an installation on this, and so I've got to give some credit to, I think it's Wes J from Buddy RC. So if you want to check out his setup on this as well. But anyway, just wanted to give him some props on a really well put together installation. It is a bit long, but it's where I got some tips on how to hook this up. So hooking up the motors, the ESCs from the motors, basically you've got your, from the motor numbers, you've got 1, 2, 3, and 4, kind of in a clockwise from the top left. And so we're going to be hooking them up in that order on this right rail here. So just going to be taking each orange and brown wire, and then we're going to keep the orange on the left hand side. That's going to be the signal wire, and we're just going to be starting from the top. So motor 1 is going to go in the top, and then motor 2 is going to go in the second one down. Motor 3, which is the bottom right here, is going to go in the third one down. And then motor 4, bottom left motor here, is going to go in the number 4 slot down. So there we go. So all of our wires are connected, and we are basically ready to install the DSM-2 receiver. So basically for the receiver, since we're going to be mounting it in the back here, and there is not really that much carbon fiber for it to mount on, looks like it's only going to be mounting about halfway on the carbon fiber. I'm going to go ahead and just cut a piece of tape that goes about halfway up the receiver so we don't have any overhang and then pick up a bunch of dirt and rocks and stuff if we crash, or grass. So just putting some double-sided sticky tape on the bottom part of the receiver and plugging in the supplied cable. Can only go in one way. Making sure that's nice and snug. And then I'm going to kind of stick it down right in the middle so it's basically flush to the back. And then with your antennas, you're going to just kind of want to make sure they're extended outwards for the best signal and kind of a Y pattern. So anyway, the other side of the cable is going to plug into this little port right here. So it can only go in one way. And just going to push that in nice and snug. Cool. So the receiver's installed. Okay, so you also get a buzzer in the package, like a low battery buzzer. And so I just basically put some sticky tape on the flat side and made sure that the audio port was coming through one of the holes in the chassis so you can hear the sound. Stuck it on there, and then I'm just running the wires, kind of tucking them away. And then you're plugging this basically right into the buzzer port right here, with the positive being on the right side. All right. So there is the buzzer. And then we did leave the ESC plugs unplugged that go to the motors. They're not labeled, so I'm just going to plug them all in randomly. Go ahead and leave these covers off and just have these all plugged in, so when we do fire it up, we can just make sure that all the motors are spinning the right way. So I'll just plug all these in real quick. Okay, great. So the next step we're going to be doing is going ahead and turning on the craft here, plugging it in, turning it on, and going ahead and seeing if we can bind it to a controller and spinning up the motors so we can kind of see if they're in the proper orientation. So what I'm going to be binding this to is a Taranis Plus transmitter that doesn't have DSM-2 or X protocol, but with this orange RX transmitter module slid into the back here, it allows it to have that DSM-2 or X protocol. So we're going to go through just quick little bind with this and show you how that's done, and then we'll go into the flight controller and spin up the motors and see how everything's working. To bind this is the way this KK2 board works. When you're binding, if you're binding to DSM-2, you're going to hold in the two center buttons at the same time while you're booting up the quad. But if you're binding to DSM-X, you just hold down the third button to the right when you're turning it on, and that will start the binding in DSM-X. I couldn't get it to work on DSM-2, so I switched to DSM-X and it worked fine. So I'm just going to show you how I did that real quick. You just have to hold this third button in while you plug in. And immediately you should see this light blinking here on the receiver. And then all you do, if you have the same setup, is when you turn on your Taranis, you're going to hold in the bind button here while you turn it on.
Welcome to OpenTX.
Okay, so you saw the light stopped blinking on the receiver, and that means it is bound with the transmitter. And then you're going to see this light just blinking here with the module. That means it's connected. So what I did do previously on this one is I went into the menu. Some of the inputs were reversed, and so you may have to go into the menu here and just by pressing the menu button, scroll down to receiver test, and then go ahead and see kind of what your inputs are doing and just make sure they're all correct. I had 3 of these reversed, and so what I had to do, like if I was pressing right on the aileron, it would be left and left was right. So if that's the case, you just go back and then go ahead and go down to receiver channel map and hit enter. And then you can basically just change these around until you get them all right. So you just scroll down and press enter and change which channel does what, and change them around until everything's working correctly. And what I also did in the Tyrannus is I made channel 5 as the auxiliary switch for the acro mode on and off, or the self-leveling mode on and off. And so right here you would just pick whatever channel you wanted for that auxiliary. And then I'll just go over that real quick on the Tyrannus. Basically, you go to the menu, and then you hit the page, and go all the way over to the 6th page of the Tyrannus. And this is going to be the mixer menu. And then all you do is you go down to the channel 5, which was the channel that I set in the Spedix as the auxiliary switch, and just hit enter. I've already done it here, but you just basically hit enter. I'm going to go ahead and hold enter to edit it, but you would just hit enter, and then you get into here, and you can call it a name, and then you can also, all you need to do here is select what source you want it to be. And once you hit enter, it's basically looking for which switch you press. And so I have this top SF switch to turn on and off the self-leveling mode. You see how it detects which switch you're pressing. So basically it'll just detect the switch you want it to map it as. Press enter again to set it, and exit out, and there you go. You just set basically that switch as your auxiliary for that model, and that will turn off and on the acro mode on the Spedix. Now by default, you may have to go into the menu and tell it to do that, and that's where you go into mode settings, and then you see how self-leveling I have as the auxiliary. There's also some other options. If you press enter here, there's the stick, always, self-leveling, or none. So I have it on auxiliary so that when I do hit that switch, that turns on the self-leveling mode. So that should basically be it. There's a bunch of settings in here. I'm not going to go through all those settings. There's a bunch of videos and documentation on the KK2 flight controller to adjust a bunch of settings, but out of the box I didn't really mess with anything. I just made sure the transmitter's working. So what you want is you want the motors to be spinning. If the thing is facing forward like this, you want the motors to basically be spinning. If you think of them as spinning in, if you had the propellers, you want them to be spinning in so they hit the front like this. So this is how you want these ones spinning, and then the back is the same way, where you want them spinning this way. So if there was something on this, they would spin and they would hit this. So just keep that in mind. So you want them to rotate into the front of the craft and into the back of the craft. So on this guy here, arming is just to the bottom right. You're going to see a red light here, and it's going to say armed on the screen. And all we're looking is for proper motor rotation, so that we can know if we need to change any of these plugs underneath motors. Okay, that one looks right. Might be hard to see it on the camera, but I can see that these two up here are spinning inwards like this. And then let's check these back ones here. Okay, so these three are right, but this one's wrong. This one's actually spinning outwards, and it's going into the side of the craft. So we want it to be spinning this way, inwards. So all you need to do in that case is just switch basically any one of these three black wires back here. So I'm just going to unplug any random one, and then switch with the other plug here. Probably should have turned off the craft before I did this, but I'm hearing some beep in here, but that should be all you need to do. So we switch these wires around. Okay, good. Now it's spinning inwards towards the back. So that's perfect. Okay, so you're probably wondering why I have all the feet off. Basically, you can't get the bottom covers on when you have the green landing gear on. So you need to put the green covers in, or the carbon fiber covers on first with these provided screws. and then the green covers will fit nicely right on top. So just going to do that for all 4 corners. Okay, so we got all the arm covers on, and I was trying to figure out where these washers are going. They do put them in the same bag as the arm covers, but there's only 8 of them. So I'm really honestly not sure where they go. I'm just going to basically put them on the landing gear screws, just because this looks like it's maybe a little bit of a brittle plastic. So it looks like if you tighten them kind of hard, it might crack this plastic. So since there's only 8 of them, I'm going to go ahead and just use them for this. ESC covers back on, snug in with the washers. And you know what? I think I'm going to do one mod right off the bat here. I plan to race with this thing at the local club here in Maui, and I think I don't really like, these are cool, the landing gear are kind of cool, but I just think they're going to create too much of an area to catch on things, trees and whatnot. And also if this crashes, it's too much of a leverage point to possibly break the arms. Now you don't have to do this for sure, but I'm just going to go ahead and do this now, just because I just have a sneaking suspicion that I'm going to end up hitting something or crashing, and these are going to help break things. So there we go. So basically just cut them off right at the lowest point. So there's still a little bit of a tab here to land on, which should keep it up above these screws, the flight controller screws. And so let me go ahead and cut all these off, and we'll see how it sets down. What I'll probably end up doing is going ahead and kind of sanding these down a little bit and making them smooth and rounded down here in the bottom. Okay, so real quick, now it's time to go ahead and put the stickers on the craft on the top of the arms. If you want the stickers on, they will cover up. So now would be the good time to go ahead and put these on. Just like so. So I'm going to do all 4 of those. Okay, so while in the process of the Spedix S250 assembly, basically I got the FPV set up in. I got this HI combo here, where you get the 200 milliwatt video transmitter. Basically has the switches here to change channels, and then it has these LED lights. Very economical setup here. So this is the transmitter. It comes with this antenna. And then you also get this wire harness in the package, and also the 700 line camera here, which I've already mounted to the Spedix mounting plate. So anyway, basically in the box of the HI, they give you the manual, and it's just in this packaging like this. And the manual just goes through basically what you get in the box and all the specs and how to set everything up and change channels. So that's the VTX combo. I'll have the links in the description for this also if you're interested in picking that up from Banggood. And so anyway, the way you hook this camera up is the small plug would go into the camera, and then the large plug here will go into the VTX video transmitter. And then we're going to go ahead and mount this on the craft. First of all, we're going to mount the camera on the front. Basically, once you have it screwed into the mount, all you're doing is sliding it in so it kind of rests snug there. And then you're basically just putting the provided screws that Spedix gives. They give this little bag that had some other stuff in it. And there's 4 screws, and you're just basically screwing it right into the plastic through the carbon fiber. And basically the Velcro strap they also give you in the box, you just basically slide it through these slits here on the bottom, and then wrap it around and reattach it to itself for the battery. So you're probably going to want to put this on the back so the battery can be in the back, and then leave the front empty. Actually, I guess it's a good time to attach this Mobius camera mount if you did want to mount a camera. Looks like the way this is going to mount up is it's going to kind of be cross pattern. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're just going to put all these in. Okay, so we got all the dampers in and the top Mobius mount plate mounted up for some nice stable video, onboard video. If we wanted to mount a Mobius cam or similar, like a run cam on there, then we're just going to basically attach the top plate to the arms. And this is where we're also going to just go ahead and put in the screws for the camera bracket mount as well. So those two screws hold in the camera mount. And unfortunately, I don't really see a way to tilt this camera. If you did start getting good at flying and you wanted to tilt this up a little bit, like most flyers do when they get a little better, it doesn't look like you can really easily tilt this. I guess you're gonna have to put some wedges maybe behind it, and then take out these screws, put some wedges in it, and tilt it up if you wanted to. So I'll be doing that probably a little later once I get a little better at FPV flight. There we go. So that's how our battery is going to mount up. Just like that, right on top. This is a 4S battery. You can use 3S or 4S on this guy. Okay, so they conveniently have this little hole in the bottom so you can kind of plug and unplug in your camera. So just going to kind of figure out how I'd like to mount this FPV setup real quick. Okay, so as far as the recording camera mount, you're probably going to want to do something like this where you just put a little zip tie in there, and just so you don't lose the camera mount. If you have a hard crash, you don't want this whole thing to be popping off and losing everything. So I'm just going to kind of lightly secure a zip tie, not too tight so you kind of mess with the dampering, but just enough to kind of lock the thing in so if you do crash, you don't lose it. For the recording camera mount, basically I just put on another Velcro strap here, and then put on one more tie wrap just to make sure this thing's not going to fall off. I'm not going to be using this 3S connector on to power the VTX. What I am going to do is just use the power distribution board. Has this 12 volt section here where you can just plug in like a servo connector. So I had this laying around. Basically it's just a positive and negative wire coming out of the 12 volt and the ground, plugged it in, and I'm just going to basically run that underneath the power board, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut this off and attach it to solder it to these cables. So it's a little more efficient as far as this looks like it's a little heavy as well, so I kind of want to get rid of this. So if you do want to run 3S or 4S, you don't have to worry about the power to the video transmitter either. It's just going to be powered always by 12 volt off the board. So got the wire stripped, and what I like to do is just use a little bit of flux. This is just your basic soldering flux you can buy from any hardware store. And I'm going to go ahead and tin these wires, and it really helps with soldering if you just go ahead and put a little dab of this flux on whatever you're going to be soldering. Heat shrink tubing, just to make sure nothing shorts out. Just kind of taking all the wires and kind of looping them around, and then just going to put a wire tie, a zip tie here. Okay, so now just basically stuffing the wire bundle somewhere in the front here. Okay, so the VTX is going to mount something like this. Just need to figure out how to secure it. Okay, so got the video transmitter mounted up. Basically just did kind of a cross tie wrap through the top plate and secured it that way. I'm going to go ahead and put on an XT60 connector. Since all of my batteries are XT60, they're not this Dean's type of plug, I'm going to go ahead and just cut this off and put on XT60 here. The way I like to do this is basically just measure and cut off just enough so it's going into the gold part all the way inside. And then put the flux on the wires and then rub the flux kind of around inside the XT60 connector. Then go ahead and tin the wires. I like to put just a little bit of solder inside the XT60 connector, just so when everything does kind of go in, it squishes in nicely. So don't forget to put your shrink wrap on first on the wires. Make sure you get the red in the plus port. Okay, so not the best job, but it should hold fine. So we just push the heat shrink up in there and then go ahead and shrink the tubing. There we go, good enough. Okay, so now that that's all done and connected, gonna go ahead and just do a little video test, make sure everything works. And I got a pair of goggles here, FPV goggles. Just gonna see if we have video. Take off the lens cap. Let's see what we got. There we go. All right, cool. So we got video and it seems to be working fine. So we hooked up everything correctly. Okay guys, so we got everything put together. That was a step-by-step process on how to put this whole thing together. Seemed to be a great little kit for someone who doesn't really know how to solder too well and just wants something to kind of push together and still have that RC build feel to it. So I'm going to be mounting this run cam on top for our high definition onboard video recording. So basically this is just going to sit right here like so. So initially I'm going to go ahead and install the 3S battery just to see how this performs first off, and then possibly go do some 4S battery testing as well. So battery wiring is always a task and everybody kind of does it differently. It just depends on what really works best for you and what's not going to get in the way. So I'm probably going to do something like this, where I run that battery through the strap like so. And you want to make sure that when you are putting the battery in, you're not touching that top plate, because then the vibration dampeners won't be able to take out the jello. So you want to pull it back like a few millimeters from the plate and then tighten it down. And then we're going to go ahead and put the propellers on, and that's basically all we have left to do before we fly. Okay, so just kind of remembering the way our motors are rotating. So just remember that they're rotating in towards the front. So this would be going in towards the front, and these would be rotating in towards the back. And when we're putting on our props, pretty easy thing to remember is just make sure that the top edge is going to be going in the direction like so. So that one would go there, and then obviously the two blacks are going to go in the front, but just to double check, top edge is going to be rotating into the front like that, and then the two rears would be the opposite. Basically rotating the top edge is rotating into the back like that, and same for the other one. And then of course with these prop nuts, you always need to stick something in the hole like this and secure them down pretty good. What I'm doing is kind of holding the motor and the propeller a little bit, and then just making them nice and snug so they don't spin on the shaft. Okay, cool guys, so that's it. Basically we have everything installed, and what we're going to do is we're going to take it into the park, get some kind of line of sight video of it flying, and also I'm going to try to get some FPV video as well, onboard cam on top of it, and also maybe some recording of what the FPV actually looks like in my goggles. See if we can get the recording app to work on my phone this time. Okay, so let's take the Spedix out. We've got the, don't forget we have the eChine Banggood FPV kit here, the 200 milliwatt transmitter, and the 700 TVL camera here that came with its own wire harness. And we're going to try all that out together and see how it flies. So let's go fly.